Well, g'day everyone. Here we are, Talking Luft. We're here again for another Top 6. Of course, this is Life in the Peloton and I'm your host, Mitch Docker. The podcast is being made possible by the support of our main partner, MAAP. As you heard last week, this month at MAAP is all about the Alt Road, as they're celebrating their release of the new Alt Road collection going live on the 16th of May, right bang, smack in the middle of the Giro. What a great time that is. Heaps going on around the world to celebrate this, which started last week in Girona around the Tracker gravel race. The collection is technical gear designed for mixed terrain and trails, perfect for those days when you really don't know what is going to be thrown at you. Well, the Giro is up and away. The Life in the Peloton Fantasy League, put together by our friends over at the Escape Collective, is off and kicking as well. And my guest on this week's Talking Luft Top 6, Harry Dowdney, is top of the table. He's kicking ass. He picked the first 3 stage winners. Can you believe it? Of course. He knows the Giro. He absolutely loves the Giro. I'm actually not surprised. Well, and this is where we met at the Giro back in 2018. He was there filming a mini-series called The Race Radio. And since then, we've worked together through many different film projects. And he's the man who got me on all those great GCN Plus documentaries. But his knowledge and his passion for the sport is always what I loved. We'd be talking old times, new times, cycling fashion, race results, everything. When it came to the Giro Top 6, I just knew he was the man. Now, guys, let's chat. Let's chat a little bit about Pillar. Pillar is my go-to every night before I go to bed and hit the hay. I'm back on the devices. Yep, I got my Whoop back up and humming because I had to find out if this triple magnesium was really changing my sleep cycles. I felt like it was, as you've heard me say on the pod before. Now, I have the proof. I'm not sleeping any longer. Well, that's just my fault because I'm going to bed too late and I have to get up early. But what I've noticed is my awake time has drastically reduced. Time to fall asleep has dropped as well. According to Whoop, it was taking me anywhere up to 50 minutes to fall asleep. I went off the triple magnesium for a week to get some baseline data. Then I brought it back in. My time to fall asleep went down to an average of about 10 minutes. Even one night I popped off in 3 minutes. There's been some other changes in my other sleep cycles as well. Look, it really does help now. I've got the proof. Pillar is a sports micronutrition company started out here in Australia developing products that intersect between pharmaceutical intervention and sports supplements for athletes. The things that we have that keep us going while we're out there racing or exercising, like electrolytes or carbohydrate products, well, these are the things that help us get to the finish line. Pillar's mission is to get you and athletes to the start line in the best condition over and over again. I've been taking it 30 minutes before bed each night, and as you heard, it has really been helping with my sleep. If you'd like to try Pillar today, head across to pillarperformance.shop and use the code LITP for 15% off your first order, or USA listeners, head across to thefeed.com/pillar. Check it out, guys. This is a no-brainer. Good sleep, good recovery. It's that simple with the triple magnesium. That's pillarperformance.shop. Now, Harry has also kicked off his own podcast series recently. It's pretty exciting, and coincidentally, it's called The Race Radio. It's with his mate, Stu Dowdney, where they have light-hearted yarns about everything in pro cycling. Very much worth a listen. Go across and check that one out. Righto. This episode is also being brought to us by HVMN, Ketone IQ. I'm absolutely loving this stuff. I'm using it all the time. Early mornings exercising, sitting there at the computer, punching out emails or doing some podcast stuff, even before I record an episode. I love the state that this puts me in mentally and also physically. So, Ketone IQ, what am I talking about? HVMN, Health via Modern Nutrition, were the world's first to launch a drinkable ketone to the public back in 2017. It's super exciting because previous to this, the only way to use ketones as an energy source was when the body converted fat stores into a usable energy source, ketones, through the state called ketogenesis, whereby your body had to be glycogen depleted. Fasting, and if you exercise for long periods of time, these were the ways to get there. Ketones are a highly efficient energy source, especially for our brains. This is where I'm actually noticing it the most when I'm using Ketone IQ, the cognitive effect it has on me. The beautiful thing about Ketone IQ is that we now have this highly efficient energy fuel available as a supplement to take whenever we need it. And within minutes, you'll have ketones in your bloodstream. Over 60% of the pro Peloton are using Ketone IQ because not only is it allowing them to have this alternate fuel source to use during racing, it is also aiding to their recovery and their cognitive function. You can see the effect it's had on teams like Visma Lease a Bike. They are dominating the Peloton. Go and try this for yourself. Head across to ketone.com/lifeinthepeloton for a whopping 30% off your first order. That's ketone.com/lifeinthepeloton. Why not test this out, guys? You guys be the judge. All right, it's time. Here we go. Giro, top 6. Enjoy. All right, this is exciting. The Giro's kicked off, and why not talk Giro top 6? I am joined by a very special guest, Harry Dowdney. Harry.
Cheers, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. We got to talk a little bit about, first of all, who the hell you are, how the hell we met. I rewinded. I just got this knock on my door, 2018 Giro. I'm there. I'm tired. Second week. Oh, Mitch, can you come out and do this interview for these guys? And I'm like, oh, all right, I'll go out.
Quite handsome. And there it goes. Team education first with our favourite rider, Mitch Docker.
Next thing I know, I'm actually having a good time. I'm like, this isn't just like a normal interview. This is race radio. Harry, tell me about that.
Well, I didn't know you felt that way back then, but you were our first ever pro on the show. So I used to work at Rafa, the clothing company, and yeah, we did this sort of fan's eye view of bike racing, where me and a mate would travel around the races in a camper van and make videos. And it was short-lived, but it was amazing fun. And yeah, you were our very generous first ever pro interview. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. It broke me out of my bubble because often what happens on a Grand Tour, you get stuck in this sort of depressing little bubble and you're so tired and all you're worrying about is yourself and how tired you are and your next meal. So it was really nice. But it started a beautiful relationship, which we've continued to this day. And we've crossed paths through Rafa, but then we also worked together at GCN, did some GCN Plus documentaries, some awesome docos. Yeah. Some really fun times as well. A couple beers were drunk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Mitch, I'm taking full credit for, you spreading your wings into kind of more presenting and doco stuff. We had an amazing time going to Roubaix, going to Flanders, going to do cyclocross. When we made you and Buell do the Bordeaux-Paris behind the Dernies. So many adventures. So good.
Kia Pucci slaughtered me out there on the climb. Jesus, that was hell too.
Yeah. So good.
What I realised over this was we were just talking all the time. And I was like, about races and your knowledge about cycling was just unbelievable. But more specifically, your love for the Giro.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's your story with the Giro? Why have you got this sort of connection to it? What is it about this race? And tell everyone out there who doesn't already know why this race is apparently so beautiful.
Mitch, I'm so glad you asked me to do this one at the top 6's because for me, the Giro is the best race in the world. There's no question. I tell you why, it comes at a time when we're so hungry for a Grand Tour because we've had all the one-day races. So every day we're just drinking it in, that day to day. And then Italy is more beautiful than France. That's a fact. Look it up. The weather's more dramatic. The leader's jersey is pink. It's pink, Mitch. Only in Italy. I love it. What else? The race has a tagline. Do you know that? Amore infinito, which means love forever. I mean, come on. They got me head over heels. And then the trophy. It literally never ends. I don't know.
It's so big, that
and
thing.
it just grows bigger and bigger every year because they have to put all the new winners' name. I just think it's so cool. Imagine in 50 years.
Is that? I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah. So they don't reduce the names of it to fit it all in. Every year they add a little bit with the new name of the new winner. It's so cool.
That's going to be epic. Give it like 20, 30 years.
The skinny climbers, they won't be able to lift it up.
It is a great race, and I'm really excited about doing this. Should we kick things off? Should we get things started? Look, I did a little bit of research about the race just to give it a bit of context. The first race was in 1909, 6 years after the first Tour de France in 1903. And with the success of the Tour de France in the newspapers, L'Alto, or how I'm probably going to just butcher that, La Gazzetta, they went, you know what? We've already had the Giro Lombardia, we've had San Remo. Why don't we follow in suit? Why don't we make our own race around Italy? And that's when things kicked off, didn't they?
Totally. And that's where the pink jersey comes from, because La Gazzetta is printed on pink newspaper. So it was flamboyant from the start.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the pink, because this is my first one. I'm going to kick it off. Are you happy for me to kick it off?
Go for it.
Mine's a pure aesthetic thing. I'm a young kid. I'm starting to get into cycling. I'd been seeing a little bit of the classics, and I was just getting into it, and I was flipping through a magazine, or maybe I was even watching an old VCR. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I saw Cadel Evans, pink MAAP kit, climbing up this climb, and they had the camera right off on him because he was suffering. 2002 Giro. And I'm just watching this. I'm like, what is this race? This guy's in this pink kit. It looked amazing, full kit. They had the pink nicks with the blocks on it, and I see him suffering away on this climb. And they're talking about Cadel Evans. Since doing a little bit more background knowledge into this over the years, it's his first Grand Tour. He takes it on. He gets the leader's jersey just before the Queen stage in the Dolomites, and he almightily cracks. He loses 14 minutes on the final climb, 18K climb to Pavel Tinkov. The stage winner is at 7 hours 24. It's a 2:22 stage. This is just Giro written all over it, isn't it? 7.5 hours for the winner. This is what I was watching this race and just seeing Cadel. I remember visually seeing his face and the suffering he went through. I didn't know he'd lost 14 minutes. I didn't know it was his first Grandy, but I just sort of was hooked on it. The aesthetics of the kit, but then afterwards I could just read into him and just go, what is this race? What is going on here? Do you remember that?
Yeah. No, that was before I started watching, but I've been doing research into MAAP, the team, recently, and yeah, you're right. That look was incredible. And actually, for you guys, Australia, the Giro has been a bit of like a breakout moment. Like where I think of Richie Porte, he wore pink, didn't he? That was when we really first caught sight of him, and what a rider he went on to be. And then Cadel, you remember he won that Strada Bianchi stage in the rainbow jersey? Oh, so good.
2010, stage 7 it was, World Stripes. He was fighting Vino. Yeah. Cadel's record in the Giro, he's only ridden 4 Giros. 2002, he's 14th. 210, he finishes 5th. 213, he was 3rd. And 214, he was 8th. He was always there, but he never quite got it. I always get the feeling that was the race he did want to get. Yeah. Living just in Italy there, just over the border in Switzerland.
Totally. Yeah, I'm surprised he only did it 4 times though, So, it's understandable that he didn't win it. At least he got that tour win, 2011. I was there. That was good.
All right, then. Hit me with it. What are you thinking then? The way we're supposed to do this, I haven't even really explained. I know you and I have been talking off air, but it's about our own most influential. Who are the people that made you connected to this race? It could be different for someone else. Cadel may even mean nothing to you for the Giro, but for me, it was that first moment that I discovered the race. So that's why he was important to me. What about you, mate? Who are you going to kick it off with?
Well, the first time I was really watching the Giro and became aware of it were kind of at the back end of the naughty years, 2007, Danilo De Luca. I was 18. Do you remember him, the killer? He's just scary dude. He looked so cool, but obviously he turned out to be a very bad guy. But and then you remember 2009, Denis Menchov crashed in pink on the final day time trial. Another epic moment.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But he still won it. That's what the Giro always was for me, the drama. But the first one I'm going to put forward, because you've put forward a countryman. I'm going to put forward Theo Gegenhardt's 2020 win. But it's
fast forward right to today.
Right. But the thing that, it's it's almost a curveball, to be honest, because it was the COVID race. You remember? It nearly finished in November. So like the light was all different and so on. But the reason I love it was because it was an amazing battle between Teo and Jai Hindley, with Rowan Dennis in the mix as well. And yeah, like I'm not that nationalistic, you know, but everyone loves to see their countrymen do well. But Froome and Wiggins kind of left me a bit cold, you know. Maybe it was, well, Froome's not British, and Wiggins, I don't know, it's just the way he rode, right? But Teo's got something. He can finish, he can attack, he's got panache, he's got grinta, he's super outspoken, like, you know, I love it. And that Giro was the first time we really saw it, you know.
Yeah, not in my wildest dreams did I imagine that this would be possible when we started almost a month ago in Sicily. I think all of my career I've dreamt of trying to be top 5 or top 10 maybe in a race of this stature. So this is something completely and utterly different to that, and I think this is going to take a long time to sink in. Just going to enjoy this. It's incredible. Yeah, it's really, really incredible, and I'm going to stay the same person. I'm going to stay as professional as I believe I always have been, and dedicated, and wake up every day looking forward to riding my bike and loving my life, and being grateful for the honour and the amazing position, the privilege that I'm in to be in this position on this team and at these beautiful races.
And yeah, it was just kind of a weird race. Like, for sure, like, it wasn't the greatest field, but the fact that they've now gone on to do like similarly amazing things proves that you know that it was worth it. But if you remember, then they were just like Teo would win a stage, then Jai would win a stage, then Teo would win a stage, and then again it goes down to like that final time trial, and Teo got it. And
the final time trial. Yeah, the final time trial, that was just like the same time,
yeah,
wasn't
they were
it?
they were a few seconds apart, weren't they? Just epic. Like, and to be honest, like, I really like Jai, so I was a bit gutted for him too. Like, they both would have been worthy winners. But it was just epic. And I just remember, you know, it was that year as well, like COVID, everything was shit. And that epic Giro, yeah, for me, it just comes to mind from a British perspective, at least.
I remember because I was in the Vuelta that year, and the two races crossed across.
Right.
Like, can you believe that? 2 Grandies on, and there was so much cycling to watch. I mean, remember the Super Saturdays as well. It was like, I've got like San Remo on today, plus a Giro stage, plus a Vuelta stage. It was just like, this is ridiculous.
We were spoiled. What?
There was that cloud that sort of hung over it. I always remember that. Was like, was that a real Giro win? You know, like that sort of lingered on until these guys, Jai and Teo, the years after now, have had to sort of prove themselves again.
I totally agree. And that's why I'm so happy that they have, because they are clearly amazing. But for sure, it lingered for a while, didn't it? You know, I really think that Teo would have won the Giro last year if he hadn't crashed out. He looked amazing. And I really hope he can get back to that same level. I don't know what his plans are for Grand Tours this year, but yeah, I'd love to see him back at the Giro again. If he can, you know, face the potential heartbreak, because that's what the Giro does to you, right? It breaks your heart.
Well, that's what I was just thinking then. Like the Giro at the end of the year, do you reckon that played a different role in the race? Because it's always been in May. When I was doing that research about the start of the race, it started in May. It's always been in May. The flip. The Vuelta used to be earlier. It used to be before the Giro. What about having the Giro at the end of the year? Do you reckon that changed the race, the weather, the light, or was it just that weird COVID?
I remember the light. The light was amazing. I think it was quite good weather in general, but it looked cold. I remember like it had that real like autumn light that was really beautiful, but I just remember seeing all the riders thinking, oh God, it's like as if, you know, a Giro isn't hard enough. And I'll talk about the weather later, but yeah.
Best time of year to race in Italy is the end of the year, autumn, those one-day races. Imagine doing a Giro at the end of the year. Well, those guys got to. I'm gonna follow suit in that, because my next one is straight after that. I'm going with the legend himself, Jai Hindley. And the reason why I've got to go him is because of that cloud. I came out of that year as well going, it was so good, Joe, I didn't get it, but maybe he'll never get a chance again, because maybe that was sort of like a bit of a chance when maybe all the riders were spread out over all these races. There was so much going on. So maybe the best field wasn't quite there. It's like, damn, it was a shame Joe didn't get it. And then the following year, he was injured. He fell out of the Giro. He was sick. Didn't go that well. So it wasn't looking great. But 2022, it came. It came in epic fashion as well. The last stage, Carapaz, Kemna up the road. So they come in, they hit the last climb. He needs to get time before the time trial. He's sitting in second. He starts to have Carapaz on the ropes. It was an epic day. 168K, 4,500 meters of climbing. The Dolomites, they hit this last climb, stage 20, like I said. Kemna's up the road. Bora plant the seed. They'd already been very tactically astute that whole race, doing some other cool things early in the race. And as Jai puts Carapaz on the ropes, he links on as Kemna waits for him. He links into his wheel. Kemna rips it and he gets the gap.
Carapaz is cracked. Carapaz is cracked now. Kemna, if he knows that, needs to pile the pressure on here with Hindley on his wheel. And the Maglia Rosa is fighting to retain contact here. Hindley knows he's got an opportunity. It's now or never for the Australian. Can he ride away from Richard Carapaz?
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, he might even get 10 seconds. He might get a little bit more. Puts a minute 30 into him in 2K. And sets up that final time trial, because going into that final time trial, like you said, in 2020, 2 years earlier, he goes to the start of that time trial the same time as Teo. I was like, how would he be feeling going into the last stage of time trial again? But with a minute 25 gap at the end, can you remember this? Do you remember watching this just going, that moment, I know I was so patriotic about him going, but it was even a really cool moment no matter what rider it
definitely.
was.
And the thing that I remember thinking about that was how patient he was. It was like the last possible moment to do it, And it was like the ultimate final sucker punch. Oh, it was so good. And obviously having that heroic, sacrificial satellite rider in Kemna, that's the stuff that dreams are made of.
It was super cool. And obviously the icing, the cherry on the cake for me, why he gets in there, if that wasn't already enough, the day after the Giro, his act right then and there, heading up to the museum, Giro d'Italia
I remember.
Museum, with his Maya Rosa. He takes it in there. He buys his own ticket.
I didn't want to make too much of a fuss or anything. We rolled in there, had my sunnies on to the last minute, took them off, and it was quiet, fortunately. I said to the lady at the counter, 2 tickets, and pay for some tickets. We went in, had a look around for maybe 45 minutes. And then I was just looking at this, this wall with the pink jerseys again, like I had done years ago. And it was man, it was just so sick. And I said to my girlfriend, because I had a skin suit, I had 2 jerseys. And I said, I've got a jersey in the car. You reckon it'd be pretty cool if I gave them the ladies at reception a jersey and they can hang it up,
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. And she was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we left. I said ciao to the ladies at reception. We left. I went to the car, got a jersey out the suitcase, came back in. And they just had no idea. They were like,
Did they believe it?
No, I mean, they just had no, I came in and I said I want to donate this jersey to the museum. And they were like, huh?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They were like, what?
No, they just had no idea at all. Yeah. And then I unfolded it, had the Bora thing, and then they were just looking at it and then after, I could just see the cogs turning, and then after 5 seconds, they were just oh.
They recognised straight away.
And then they just went crazy. And yeah, it was just nuts, man. It was super cool. And they were really excited, and it was just a real special moment. And then, I said I'll give it here's the jersey, you can hang it up, sort of thing. And they were like, no, you sign it, you hang it up. And then
they made a big
and it was a real quiet day, so there weren't too many people in there. I hung this jersey up. It was just it was just a sick moment, really goosebumps moment again. And yeah, just my jersey with some of the other guys there. And because I'd seen the jerseys and a lot of them had like donated by this guy or donated by this guy, and none of them were really like donated by riders from what I could see. So I just thought like,
That's a cool element.
Yeah,
It's a really cool element.
I just thought like, if I could give this jersey, like I came here and it gave me so much like as a teenager, this museum, and I just thought like, shit, yeah, it'd be cool if I gave him a jersey.
This is just, you're amazing, mate. He gets it. He gets the whole thing that we're doing here today. This race.
Totally. I think that was on your pod, wasn't it? You got that exclusive. Oh man, I remember. What story. And that's what we're talking about. The Giro is romance and history, and he gets it. So what more could you want from a winner? Oh, so good.
Mate, I've set it up. What are you thinking next?
Well, I'm going to go for like a classic. So for me, one of my favorite ever Grand Tours is the 2017 Giro. So I'll tell you why. It was the 100th Giro. I mean, that's already a great start, right? Like the centenary edition.
Totally.
So cool. And then do you remember, I think it was the first week or like eight stages in, there was that police motorbike parked to the side, and like the whole of Team Sky and Adam Yates crashed into it. So it took Thomas and Landa out of it. And then the Nairo Quintana won that stage up Blockhouse, but then Dumoulin won the TT the next day. And for me, that was like, it's what Grand Tours are all about, right? You've got this like tiny, really stoic, pure climber in Quintana. And then his big rival was Tom Dumoulin, who's your like big passista, they call them in Italy, like ruler style, like, and he's the charismatic one. Nairo's the quiet one, but there's like, so it's like opposites attract in this crazy battle, you know? And it was, and that was the first time we ever saw Dumoulin as like being as good at climbing as he was. You remember I think he won on Europa.
Yeah.
Just Wiggins style, just churning it, but like against Nairo, who's just like attack. Ah, so good. And then, also what else happened in that race? Well, obviously Tom had the natural break.
Well, the natural break in the jersey.
Yeah. I'd say that pink's the worst colour for that. And then, but on that same stage, that was the Queen stage. Do you remember Nibali won the stage? He did they were descending off I think it was the Passo Giao, maybe. The Umbrail Pass, that's what it was. They were descending off it, and he did that like bunny hop over a patch of icy water, like into a hairpin.
That's right.
Yeah, you remember that one?
I do remember this.
And that was like, and that was the year after Nibali won, like I don't know, there's so much. And then the last day, there was 4 guys that could have won it. They were all within like 90 seconds, I think it was. You had Dumoulin, Pozzovivo, Zaccarin, Nibali, Pinot as well. Nairo was in pink, but Dumoulin, he was in 4th, but he did it. He got it in first. And he was the first ever Dutch Giro winner and the first Dutch Grand Tour winner for nearly 40 years. I don't know. I just thought it was awesome. It was like, and he like the riders like Pinot and Nibali in the mix. It was just great.
It was an all-time good start list of its time because Yatesy was in there as well. And you know what I also love about this? Of course they did this. The Cima Coppi, the most important climb of the Giro is the Stelvio, of course. Yeah. They keep the Stelvio for the 100th edition. It was a really good edition. I remember that. And I was catching only little bits. And I didn't get to watch it the whole way through because I was racing, but you just kept hearing these great little tidbits of stories. And it's like the 100th edition of the tour. Yeah. That is by far still my favourite Tour de France.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know how they do it, but it's always great when it's like those centenary kind of, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, it's crazy that there's been more than 100 editions.
Well, speaking of the Stelvio, I didn't pick it, but I picked a different climb. It's a relatively new climb to the race because climbs are very important in all Grand Tours, but there's something about the mountains in the Giro. They're all like these ridiculous climbs with ridiculous stories, with ridiculous gradients. As a rider myself who wasn't good at climbing, I typically hated them, but I sort of could see how awesome they were. They were just such cool climbs to ride, and every climb had its own character about it, its own story. I've picked a climb for this one, and I have picked Mont Zoncolan and the Old Beast. It's actually described as the sublime monster. I love it. It's got its own name as well. It's only been in the race since 2003. And good old Gilberto Simone, he was the first guy to attack it and win. He won back-to-back, 2003, 2007. It's featured 7 times. The climb itself, it gains 1,200 meters in 10K, average of 12%. If that doesn't sound enough, it maxes out at 22%. There's actually a couple of flat bits in it. So you know what that means? Between kilometer 2 and kilometer 7, for that 5 kilometer stretch, it just averages a straight 15%. It's nuts. The guys, you ride up there a 34, 32 tooth sort of combination, practically 1-to-1 to get up there. If anyone remembers back in 2014, Michael Rogers won up there and the crowds were so big up there. And because it's so steep, they were going so slow. Rogers was just like pushing people off. He was getting pissed off. The guy who he was with,
Francesco Bongiorno wasn't it?
Yeah, Francesco Bongiorno, I'm glad you're here to help me pronounce some things. He was behind. He gets pushed. This guy starts pushing him up there because he thinks he's helping him. He pushes him into the back of Rogers' wheel and he has to unclip. Ultimately, that's the gap that Rogers gets. They hold that gap. He can't actually catch back up to him. I loved getting pushed up there. I rode it in 2018 and I was just like, you better be helping me get up here. The reason why I chose this climb, it doesn't have as much character as I think as the Stelvio or, some of the other climbs like the Motorola. I was going to maybe choose the history of it. But the thing I liked about this was I got to really experience it. I was shit scared of it. Man. I was shit scared of it. My Soignier was trying to scare me too. He goes, oh, dude. He was Italian. Go, hey. Every day I'd be like, oh, man, I made it. He goes, hey, Zoncolan, you ain't going to make that. I'm like, stop it. I'm so scared of this climb. It's the hardest climb in the world. And I was so nervous going up there that I was like, help me, please. Please, people, help me get up here. Have you tackled
I've done it. I did it that year because we were making race radio, So me and Stu camped at the foot of the climb in the van, and then in the morning he got the cable car up and I rode up it. I got overtaken by a runner, Mitch. So that goes to show, 1, how bad I am at cycling, but 2, it's so hard. But then I'm going to give you the fans' perspective of the Zoncolan because at the top it's the most perfect natural amphitheatre to watch. So there's this huge grassy bank where you can see the last 3 hairpins. So everyone sat there on the side and it's amazing. So we were there. Yeah. And that year Froome won that stage, but Yates was chasing and he was so close in the end. He was getting the gap down and down and down. Oh, it was so good. But to take it back to your Bongiorno story, man, those crowds that day, I don't think I've ever seen as big crowds as that. And it's so sad for Bongiorno because he never won a race in his career, basically, and he missed the chance to win the most iconic, life-changing win because of the fan that pushed him and made him unclip. Nightmare.
The guy who was supposedly helping him.
Exactly.
That year, I was still 24 minutes behind up, and I started at the bottom more or less with those guys. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's just it's for a Froome rode a 40. I read today, Froome rode a 34, 32 as well. It's not just for the big fatties like me. Even the top guys were right in the big small gears.
I remember just thinking how horrible it is and how I couldn't imagine racing up it. Yeah, crazy. Right, I'm going to follow up your Zoncolan with another mountain. Actually, it's not one you mentioned. I'm a bit disappointed, Mitch. I'm going for the Gavia. And I'll tell you what. I think the Gavia is the scariest. It's the scariest mountain ever used in maybe even in any Grand Tour. The reason is the weather, right? Because it's so high. The Zoncolan's maybe 2,000. This goes up to 2,600 meters. So, and the road pass itself is only open in May until September, October each year because of the snow. So, and the Giro's in May. So no wonder so many of the editions, there's so much snow everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Gavia to me, as because of all that, it represents this like unknown mystery land where cyclists go. We don't really know what happens, and then they're spat out the other side, wet, freezing, knackered, crying, ones and twos. Like, you know, it's kind of like that's the fan's perspective. You know, you who've raced climbs like that, yeah, obviously you'd be like, shut up, mate. But you know, I can't help but romanticize it. I'll tell you, I was actually looking into it, Mitch. You did the Giro in 2014, which was the last time they rode out the Gavia. What happened?
Well, that's the story I was going to tell you. So that was the famous year that Green Edge finished with 2 riders. I was the 4th last rider there, and we get to the rest day, and it was the day before the rest day. There's a flat stage, and then the Gavia was the day after the rest day. And was like, just get to the rest day, Mitch. I was super crook, and had Swain and Heppy watching over me. And eventually I was like, fuck this, I am out of here. I swung off. I did a Dumoulin, took the nicks off, and I just, that was it. I was done. I was out of the race. And we get to the hotel, and the boy's like, oh man, you just had to get to the rest day. And I'm like, and then what? Do the Gavia? Like, am I miraculously going to recover and do like the hardest climb in the history of the Giro? It was straight out of the holes, the Gavia. I remember that year. It was straight out of the holes. It was straight up the Gavia. I'm like, what was I even waiting for? Like, why would I just wait one more day just to get dropped and out of the race?
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Because I was like, I wonder if Mitch has done it. And then I was looking at your pro cycling stats. I was like, he DNF'd the stage before. I was like, you missed, because that stage is one of the most epic stages of cycling history. Like, do you remember what happened? They said as they were going up the climb, they said they were going to neutralize the descent. But then, like, all the pictures were lost. Like, and basically they got to the bottom of the descent, and Nairo was in a group at the front, and the pink jersey, Uran, was like a minute behind. And basically, Rigo lost the pink jersey that day because either Nairo and other riders didn't follow the commissaire's rules, but it was so confused. Like, there was like a tweet from the official account, but then some people were saying it didn't come through. Like, but yeah, like that was Rigo's, I reckon that was his best chance to ever win a Grand Tour. Heartbreaking.
And weirdly, he's never been friends with Nairo after that.
Right?
So I wonder what did happen.
Exactly. But just a couple of other things about the Gavia. Like,
yeah.
First time was 1960. So a fair while away. Even from the start, it was epic. So the guy that came off it first, he punctured 3 times on the descent, this guy called Emilio Massignan. And then he was just rolling on rims as he crossed the line. He'd been beaten by Charlie Gaulle by a few seconds. And then apparently he just burst into tears in front of all of the photographers. So it's like the Gavia's crawler. And then the most famous edition, you'll know it for sure, 1988. They called it the day the hard men cried. That was the headline in the Gazzetta. That was when Andy Hampsten, the American, took the pink jersey and won the Giro. But
7-Eleven,
exactly.
Was it? Yeah.
But he was so smart. He was wearing ski goggles, a jumper. The guy who'd gone up, attacked first, Johan van der Velde, he was wearing short sleeves and no gloves. And he got so cold on the descent because it was snowing like an absolute blizzard. He had to stop in a fan's camper van to drink hot tea so he could like not be shaking. And he finished 45 minutes down. And
Is that because they just didn't know what the Gavia really was, or it was just a bit of a freak weather storm, or what was
a bit
the
of
go
both?
there?
Yeah. Then they all knew it was going to be cold, but I don't know. Yeah, we made a doco about that stage for GCN Plus, and like the stories were crazy, Mitch. Like the motorbikes were slipping on the ice at the top. Fans were giving the riders their jackets because they could see they were just shivering. It was wild. One of those like mythic stages, you know. Everyone knows the 1988 Gavia stage.
That's the thing. Like, we've got all these weather protocols, and we have cold moments now, and we talk about the riders. You know, should they ride or should they not? But like back then, they literally did Nixon jersey.
Crazy. Should we talk about some Italians now, I reckon? What do you think?
Yeah, I reckon. I've got one. Can I kick one off?
Go for it.
I haven't just got one. I've got the best one. Fausto Coppi
Il Campianissimo.
wins the Giro on his first attempt at age 20. He's one of 3 riders to win the Giro 5 times. Alfredo Binda and Eddie Merckx being the other 2. He started the Giro 10 times. He won it 5 times. He was second twice. He was 4th twice. His worst position was 32nd. Coppi just owned this race, and he just did it with, like you, as in your words, panache.
Yeah.
This is from Raphael Geminani. This is what he said. He was another rider. This is what he said about Coppi's domination. When Fausto won and you wanted to check the time gap to the man in second place, you didn't need a Swiss time watch. The bell of the church clock tower would do the job just as well.
He's a legend.
That's how Coppi was.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
Also, he just looked amazing. There's so many cool stories. Did you know do you know about his personal soigneur? Mate,
No, I don't.
This guy called Biagio Cavana, right? And he was blind. He was a blind soigneur, but he was also like Fausto's confidant, but also his coach, his manager. He was basically pretty good at administering potions, if you know what I mean. So he all added to the mystique. But then also, do you remember Fausto? He caused a massive scandal at the Giro one year because he basically had an affair with a married woman, and he was married, the La Dama Bianca. There's so much. There's so much there. But yeah, he's the king of the Giro, and one of, if not the greatest Italian riders of all time. So yeah, what can you say?
There was that sort of, from what I understand, not that I know it that well, but there was that sort of pull from the tour, and this sort of exclusion from the tour as well during the wartime and this sort of thing. But he sort of, I think, was so important for the growth of the Giro at that time, to give it the race that credibility, and was sort of that figure that gave it almost what we're talking about right now, because he wasn't just like, and definitely no disrespect to Merckx, he wasn't just a cannibal. He did it with that style. It was all about that, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's just Italian style, isn't it? And that's part of why the Giro is so great, in my opinion. I've actually been to where Fausto grew up. There's a little village, and the village is just sort of taken over as a monument to him. There's an amazing museum, his old like the house he grew up in. There's a wonderful restaurant that's run by, I think, his grandson. Really cool. If anyone ever is going to Italy, recommend looking that out if you're a cycling fan. It's like make a pilgrimage to where it all began for one of the greats.
Can you even remember what that village is?
Yeah, it's called Castellania, and it's tiny, but it's in such a beautiful part of Italy in the hills of Tortona. So yeah, look it up if you're going to Italy. I really recommend it. I loved it. I'm going to bring it more modern. Yeah. Pretty much still the iconic figure of Italian cycling. It's Marco Pantani, and specifically 1999.
Of course.
Because 1998, Marco had done the Giro Tour double. Last person to do it. Obviously, Pog's trying to do it this year, but I don't know whether anyone will ever do it again. Pantani was a god in Italy, 1999 Giro. The stage 15 of that year was, for me, one of the craziest, most cool climbs ever witnessed. Because you know what I'm going to say? Up Europa. Do you know what that is?
I don't. No.
Oh man, check this out. So Pantani was in pink, right? Stage 15. And he punctures at the foot of the climb Europa. It's 10K long. It's not too steep, but, still a proper, Cat 2 climb. So he loses time. His whole Mercatone Uno team wait for him because they've got the likes of Jalabert and Heras. They don't wait. They're going full gas ahead. They start just going full gas, the Mercatone Uno team, like a lead out up the climb. And then when they've all popped, Pantani just launches. You can see he just flies past every single rider. 49 of them, Mitch. He passes 49 riders and he wins the stage. They call it in Italy, they call it La Rimonta del Secolo, which means the comeback of the century. And Jalabert, who was one of the favourites, said, if I hadn't got out of the way, he'd have ridden right over me. You can watch it on YouTube, right? He's out the saddle like the entire climb, Mitch. It's amazing. I mean, listen,
in the drops,
in the pink jersey. Oh man, it's so cool. So cool. Check it out. For sure, it's dodgy, allegedly, but everyone was on it. So I still think it's like a godlike level of genius. And then 4 days later, he got kicked off the race for failing a hemocrit. And like, it was the biggest scandal in Italy, let alone Italian sport. It was crazy. I mean, this guy was like as big as the Pope. I don't know. Unfortunately, that kind of marked the end for Pantani. Like Lance arrived and the rest was a big messy history, right? But that performance on Europa is, for me, his iconic performance, and it was at the Giro, and that's why it's my vote.
But his legend still lives on. Despite what anyone wants to say, anyone who refers to Pantani is in that exact fashion, as you said, because of, again, this Italian sort of panache, the way that this sort of aura they have around them. And he had everything about that. And the Giro sort of encompasses that, doesn't it? It brings that out in those Italian riders.
And he was such a fragile hero as well. So that made him more human. And that's why we loved him, even more, because he would do these things that were beyond belief, but then he would crack or he would show great fragility. And obviously, ultimately, he's a tragic case. But he really represents, I mean, how cool did he look as well? Like, with the bandana, with the earring, the bald head. I mean, the viewers can't see me, but he's my style inspiration.
You do a pretty good Pantani when you dress up. You get the goatee going, you shave the head down. I've seen it before. It's something to be proud of.
Not everyone can do it, Mitch.
No, not at all. Not necessarily in the exact same vein, but look, I'm going to stick to Italian.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's rewind back to his golden era. Let's not talk about what's going on right now. Let's just focus on when he was the Lion King, Super Mario. We're talking about Cipollini. I was a massive Cippo fan, and I'm going to use was because when he was racing, aesthetically, I love this guy. He just looked awesome. He got all about the kit. He made sure he was schmick when he had the hair slicked back. He had the big bricos on. When he got the world stripes, they were everywhere. When he was in Aqua Sapone, it was Zebra Kid. He did the Muscle Man. We all know the stories. Let's get to the results. He ticks off 42 stages of the Giro. He has the record.
42.
It's 42.
That's nuts. Like 4 a year average for 10 years. It's crazy.
Okay, check this out. In the 14 Giros he competed, only his last Giro, 2004, was the edition he didn't win a stage.
My God.
Because clearly he had to. There's no other way you get into 42, I guess. He was the guy who sort of invented the lead-out train. There was no real lead-out train before Cippo, from what we can really understand. Maybe there was one or two, but there was never the full organised lead-out train before you saw the red train, the Seiko train. And then, obviously, you saw Cippo just launch off that, the big salute. He was the Lion King. He did have that sort of, I've heard stories about him too. Like, apparently the story goes that, when he came in the morning, he had to have a fresh jar of jam every day waiting for him. So he could make that, if you open a jar of jam, it makes that little pop sound. He needed to have that pop every morning. That was one of his many, many things he needed to have, as you can imagine. He decided to retire in 2005. Remember this, the Swan Song? He decided to come down to the Giro in a full head-to-toe pink skin suit and ride the 1K prologue, which ironically Brett Lancaster won. And on that pink skin suit was every win, 42 victories written all over that skin suit. And he just rolled along. Like, who gets to do that? He wasn't even in the race. He did the race still. But even after that, I've heard stories of this. I can only hope these are true, which is true. He used to just roll into the Peloton when he was retired in the early 2000s. Like, he would just go like, oh, yeah, cool, the Sage is going past this pass of Tuscany, wherever it is. He'd just come in from the side, no helmet, and he'd just roll into the bunch and do like 50K with the bunch. It's like, and people would just be like, yeah, sweet, it's Cippo, no worries, he can just do that. The race would just kick on, Cippo would just be in the bunch. He was the authority figure of the bunch. I've heard like no one raced before Cippo said, okay, we can race now. TVs are on. No attacking today, and then the Giro would just start.
He's definitely a figure of a bygone age, but he's so 90s, isn't he? Oh, man. But I mean, for sure, put aside all of the bad stuff, but like, he was so cool back in the day, wasn't he? All right, I got a question. What's your iconic cheapo look? What's your favorite cheapo look?
It's a big call. Far out. There's so many. I really did love, he was the first guy to embrace the full yellow. Yeah, I'm not going to say this is my favorite, but the full yellow stuff. He was the first guy to do full stuff. What I'm talking about. Nicks and jersey and everything matching. The world champs, I've never felt like it's been done as good. Like, it's such a hard one to pull off. Everyone's like, do you do classic, whatever? When he came out and did the full worlds and it was just everywhere, I don't know, it was just the subtleties of it, where the stripes, where the bands were on the leg, how the bands were on the bike, those sorts of things. It just, the full world skip, like when he was in Gent Wevelgem, there's that iconic thing, he pulls the bottle out, he throws the bottle at the commissaire. It's in full worlds. Like, the thing is, he was actually good in the classics too. He won E3, he won Gent Wevelgem 3 times as well. You forget that. My iconic, so look, I'm a long way around. The Muscle Man suit. I love that. I love that. What about
I'd like to see him. Oh, to be fair, I was going to say I'd like to see him in the Muscle Man suit now, like a bit flabby, but he's not. He's even more muscly. I think the world's, like you said, you jog my memory. I think he always wore he was wearing the white cap, everything white. It just looked good. It was perfect. That's what the World Championship should be like. I love it when Remco was wearing his all white at Liège, and when Mathieu does it. It's what it has to be done. So yeah, but we're getting off topic, Mitch. It's my final top 5. I'm going to go for the Giro final week as a concept, right? So for me, nothing hits as good as the final week of the Giro, right? It's like stay Italian. It's like a crescendo at an opera, It's building the first 2 weeks, and then bang, all the instruments are playing. It's dramatic. The cannons are firing. The conductor's going mad. Pavarotti's there belting it out. That's what the final week of the Giro is. That's why I love it. I don't know how they do it though, Mitch, because it's like every time is amazing. Last year,
well, they just keep making it stupidly hard. That's how they do it. It's just, as a rider, you hate the last week of the Giro.
I was going to say, that's the thing. You always look, when you look at the stage profiles, it's like 3-star stage, 2-star stage. The final week has always got 3 5-star stages, and you think, how the riders must hate that.
And the stages are like two. They're not even short. It's let's just do a 230, 240, and maybe a 250. You're you can't do 3 classics at the end of a Grand Tour. You can't do that, but they do.
From a fan's perspective, it always delivers, Mitch. I'll give you some examples. Yeah. Do you remember 2016 when Kruijswijk crashed and Nibali then swooped to take pink from Chavez? That was amazing. Yeah. Ryder Hagedal, Perito, Rodriguez, they had that epic back-to-back, and then Hagedal took pink on the final day. What about Jai?
2018, Froome's ridiculous attack.
Even last year, G and Roglic, down to the wire. It's I don't know how they do it. Maybe it's to the detriment in terms of GC action early on in the race, but it means that, for me, the final week of the Giro is the one week of the year that every bike racing fan just needs to drop everything and tune in.
What's your roughie then? Who's your questionable? Do you want to kick off? Do you want to go back to back?
No, I do because it's sort of related. You're talking about how hard it is. My roughie, my curveball is the crap weather. I love it.
No.
Rain, poor weather conditions, visibility, snow and cold forced the organisers to change the 16th stage of the Giro d'Italia, cutting out 2 of its biggest mountains. No Passo Pordoi, no Passo Fedaya. There would be the Passo Gial at a stage lasting 153 kilometres.
So I think the Giro's become a bit famous for bad weather. And as a fan, sitting on my sofa picking my nose, it's easy for me to say. But for me, the bad weather makes great racing and a great visual spectacle. I'm really sorry to the riders for saying it, because I can't imagine how horrible it is. But I'm also not sorry at all.
I'm not either. Now I'm not having a race in it. It's just get it grimy. You want it to be sleety. You want those big climbs to have a little bit of snow at the top. Just make it just hard.
Yeah. I can remember we spoke about the Gavia, but I love the stuff like, do you remember 2021? Egan Bernal, he went solo over the Passo Giao. We saw him just launch his attack and then the TV signal went down for half an hour and then suddenly he pops out with a minute gap at the bottom. Nobody's ever seen that. I think that's so cool. And that's the weather. That's 2019, Ciccone and Jan Hurt had this epic battle and then Carapaz cracked Roglic. There's just so many great weather days. But what is it actually like, Mitch? Tell me. You've done it.
It's hard. Like I've been in tears coming up stage 20, going, I don't know if
you
I
made
can
me
make
feel
this,
so bad
because you've just got back-to-back climbs and you're like, I want this to be over. But the weird thing is, I shit you not, Monday, maybe Tuesday after that last stage finishes on Sunday, you get to Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, you're like, yeah, the Giro wasn't that bad actually. I'd probably do it next year. So you just forget all that stuff. But in the moment, I've been on well and truly my hands and knees a few times in that race. It's brutal.
Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, I'm not trying to say that I think there shouldn't be weather protocol and things like that. I just must admit that I prefer watching in shit weather because I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. Now I don't have to ride. I agree. Well, should I wrap this up?
Do it.
With my questionable, but the reason I've got sort of a good argument for this. It's a bit of a mate of mine, Dave McKenzie, local Australian rider. Back in 2000, back in the days where Chippo was saying, we do this, we do that. Stage 7, he gets a ride. He's running on Linda McCartney racing team, the British team, a bit of a smaller team. They get a bit of a wild card into the Giro and they need to sort of get in the breaks. And Macca goes up the road, 164K solo breakaway. So death march for any other rider. But it comes on. He gets a solo victory of the Giro. And that in itself sets up Dave for the rest of his cycling life almost. He's got this credible result in the race. And everyone knows you win a stage of the Giro, no matter what the circumstances are, you're someone. It's got so much weight in it. And that's what I love about this. This is just for me. I know Macca, there wasn't, he raced around, he had so much talent. And in those years, it was hard to get, because we know obviously what was going on. And it was hard to get in teams unless you wanted to go down that route. And Macca's victory there, it carries so much weight. And I love that. He's still so passionate about talking about it. And that's what I love about this race is that it does set up, it does change people's lives. Let's sort of Ryder Hazerdale, that year he won it, it was just, it produced something you didn't see coming. It's such a curveball race.
It's such a good point, Mitch, because that kind of stuff doesn't really happen at the Tour so much. And at the Vuelta, it's not as life-changing. But the Giro, it does happen. There's so many instances of riders getting that Grand Tour stage win and changing their life. It's like a kingmaker in a way, Yeah, I love it. That's super cool. And it's, what can you say? It's the Giro. It just hits different,
Mate, I've got a smile from ear to ear. I love talking the Giro, but I've especially loved talking to you about it as well. This has been fun, mate. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. It's great. Feels like full circle. We first met at the Giro and now we're talking about it. It was beautiful. Wow, what can I say? Thanks, man.
Thanks, Harry.
Cheers.
Well, what a bluster that was. That was a lot of fun. I'm loving these top 6 episodes. And when you've got a guest like Harry who knows the Giro so well, has the passion for the race, it makes it that much more fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you're enjoying the Giro. If you're in the Fantasy League, I look forward to battling you out there. Don't think we're going to get Harry. He's just kicking ass in that league at the moment. If you missed out on doing that, we're going to have another one ready for you at the Tour de France. That's the Escape Collective Fantasy League. It's like a cycling tipping competition where you get to pick the winner each day. More about that over on the Communique episode, so you go and check that out. Big thanks goes to our major partner, MAAP, who are bringing the podcast to you this year, Red Bricks Media, who are putting the episodes together, of course, the Life in the Peloton team, and you guys for listening as well. There'll be another episode for you guys next week, and until then, guys, sit back, enjoy the Giro, and I'll see you then.
That iconic music in this episode was composed by none other than the legend, Pete Shelley. Cheers, mate.